I've had from the beginning, since I started making the 300 apples that you see sort of strewn across the floor, having the sound of apples being eaten and that kind of almost ASMR thing, how that can be potentially a percussive sound or create a kind of beat in the space. Having a group of people come and kind of play around with how we can get that sound was really important to me. It's not just hearing something, it's actually sitting and listening to what might otherwise be incidental but becomes a natural orchestration, really, that's occurring around you, that's very much connects with ideas of musique concrète, so that everyday sounds become sort of musical, or even Henry David Thoreau's idea of an unpremeditated score, essentially, that's being given to you by the nature around you. So I came with a set of ideas of things that I wanted to hear in the gallery through this soundscape. And I think from going to experience, be part of the wassail, I've done some actual field recording from one of the ceremonies where people are clanging on the pots and pans and trying to like wake up the evil spirits and get rid of them. Through making this newer work, I realised that a lot of my work was about looking at the constraints of a woman during those moments, those key moments in her development. And that why can't stepping into this moment that's so, I think, being maligned by a kind of the way women are represented in that period of their life as a witch, as a hag, as a crone. I'm trying to reclaim the word crone as a sort of positive fourth stage of womanhood. I think there's so much around women's bodies that is hidden, but also we're made to feel ashamed of menstruating, the biological clock, and all these pressures that are inflicted upon women by society at different points. I'm at this point of entering into deep wisdom and power, the way that a crone would have been represented pre a kind of more misogynistic storytelling that's kind of become the one that we retell. So normally you'd pour clay into these. Oh, clay is a little bit, it's not so good. It's okay. You get a sort of sense of a wonky apple. It's fine. Once I put a leaf on it and a stalk. I am sort of calling them crones, but actually a crone in the original sense of the word is a woman that can see beyond, is wise, has power. And I think that's the thing that's kind of been taken out of the narrative. This is Babs, she's the oldest, she is 75. I wanted these women to represent women of different ages from, I suppose, the point of menopause, which is sort of around 45 and 55.
I knew she wanted to create something different to portray the older woman in later years. And so therefore, what you're portraying to me is the everyday woman on the street that you would walk by. Because as we get older, you get looked at as if you're on the scrap heap. But with Serena being so easy and relaxing, I opened up about some things, what I felt about my body, the fact that I had this big scar on my stomach, which I thought was very ugly. And that was done when I was about 7 to 8 years old. You know, I really used to make sure I hid my body. Then when I was talking with Serena, it suddenly come to me that I felt differently. I was able to talk openly about my scar. And then later on, I felt I'm really proud now of my body, because I think to myself, the first scar that I got, that actually saved my life. And then later on, coming through my younger years, having the children, it actually meant I'd given life. So each scar that we have usually will portray something, but it's not ugly. It's there. You've given life, you've had life, and this is what it's all about. Doing that naked sit-in really gave me a revelation, basically, that no, it's not ugly, it's what's there, it's life. And that's the way I look at it now.
The way I chose to deep dive into it was very much, I think, a reaction to having a daughter suddenly. It became really important that the stories and the women that I was going to speak to her about, how I was going to speak to her about them, from what perspective. I guess I became very aware of the female archetypes we know that are ingrained in us, that are deep within our subconscious, from the point of view of the woman herself, and maybe telling that story from quite a different perspective. Going on a journey with the work and the initial idea and the initial storytelling evolves with the people that I meet and the people that interact with the work and in its making. I wanted there to be a series of female bodies, but I wanted them to be of a particular age. But also I wanted to get a very plural sense of what a woman's body is. I didn't think of a fruit being a ripened ovary. But when you think about it, that's like quite obvious. But it's quite interesting that that's something that we see, we eat, we consume. But actually it's like the sexual organ of a plant. But it doesn't give you the ick, whereas you think about your own ovaries and the own internal mechanisms of a woman's body. And unfortunately, because of the way being brought up to be a bit icky about that stuff, is just a massive shame. I guess a lot of my work delves into the places I go to and kind of drawing. I'm really interested in folklore and witchcraft and magic and rituals, essentially, that are kind of embedded in places. So when I go to a place, I instantly start to sort of unpick what might be there that's of interest. And I came thinking about the apples as a symbol of Eve, of a creation story, of a creation myth. And the Garden of Eden are the obvious places you go to. But then I think when I discovered the wassail and the fact that it's a fruit-bearing, it's something that happens in these sort of fruit-bearing counties, it instantly drew me in. And then I just loved what opened up in terms of what I started to find out about the wassail being essentially this ritual I saw as a sort of fertility rite. I asked Millie to basically see if there was a local kiln that we could use. That took a lot of finding. It's an intense process of painting, but I would say painting blind, because the colours don't look at all like the colours you're gonna get. Once the glaze is on, it goes back in the kiln, and then you open the kiln and hopefully have an object that you wanted before your eyes. But, you never know.
I personally would like to give a big thank you to Serena Korda for choosing me and to help her portray what women are. And now I look at myself now and I feel really grateful